right, everybody. Here is the final paper for the class. So, pretty much structured, set up the same as the other two papers. I want you all to do a close reading and analysis, and you'll have the choice of choosing Titus Andronicus or Antony and Cleopatra. So, here we go close reading and analysis. Due Tuesday, December 12th. And we have, this is really the last thing due. So if you want to wrap it up and get it done early, please feel free to do so. Upload a Microsoft Word or document only. Structure, format, everything else is the same. MLA, Times New Roman, font size 12, introduction with a thesis at the end of the introduction, body paragraphs following Mill guidelines, main idea, quote from the play, and analysis. For this assignment, you'll write a 3-page. I want you to expand this a little bit. We did 2 the last couple. Try and get to 3 pages on this. Close reading and analysis of Antony and Cleopatra and or Titus Andronicus. So close reading, the same we've been doing, analyzing. There's the structure and setup, what not to do. Don't start your paper with platitudes, etc. Think about the themes of our class, what we've been looking at closely, the overarching themes: guilt, indecision, revenge, and melancholy. Think as well about the ideas of the roles and the roles of fortune in Antony and Cleopatra, and compare the Roman life, the life that the Romans want and believe Antony should be living, against the Egyptian life. And that's a big dichotomy in Antony and Cleopatra. So you can look at those things. You can also look at it's in there, but like indecision in Antony and Cleopatra. With Antony, when Fulvia, what's he gonna do? Look specifically as well at family and revenge in Titus Andronicus. Right? Look at how a lot of times family, and I'm going to argue, and I don't know Titus as well as the other plays, but is Aaron the only character who really has complete compassion and concern for his son? It seems throughout the rest of the play, family members are used as pawns for political advantage or for pawns for revenge. How does the hunger for revenge destroy the lives of nearly everyone? Right? You see that from the beginning when Tamora pleads for her son's life and Titus says no. And then it sets off that chain of events. So here, you could pick something from here and look at it. Here are just some questions I came up with. A lot of these questions are riffing off, extending, and borrowing from our discussion board posts. 1. Look at Cleopatra. What makes her such a different and unique character? She is described in Act 2, Scene 2, lines 241, 244 as a woman of infinite variety. What does this mean? Why is Antony so entranced with her? What does she have? She has it, right? Describe the relationship between Antony and Cleopatra. What is it? Describe their. It seems in many ways that Cleopatra, you could juxtapose Cleopatra too with the Octavia, Fulvia, the women in Rome. She has something that they don't have, right? She's willing to kind of play with Antony, give it back to him, fuss with him, argue with him, where previous women are a little more subservient, right? How does she compare contrast with other characters in Hamlet, Macbeth? Look further and closer at Enobarbus's descriptions in Act 2, Scene 2, lines 196, 225. Close read a few different scenes of Cleopatra displaying her quote-unquote infinite variety. Now, you're not going to be able to fit all this in a 2 to 3 page paper, 2.5, 3-page paper. Just choose 1 or 2 of these ideas and talk about them. Look at the role of fortune in Antony and Cleopatra. What roles what role does fortune play in the lives of Antony and Octavius Caesar? Fortune is mentioned 43 times in the play, so you can even walk through the play and look at the many times fortune comes up. Look closely at 2-3 lines 10 through 41, the exchange between Antony and the soothsayer, and at Mark Antony's second soliloquy, Act 2, Scene 3, lines 33 through 41. It seems as though, despite the fortune of Octavius Caesar, despite the fortune, Caesar will always come out on top. Antony persists in grappling with him. You know, uh, I'm curious too about this. That even though Octavius Caesar comes out on top, and in many ways it seems like Antony wins at love, even though they die, these kind of drawn out death. That Antony seems to be luckier in love. I don't know. I mean, that could be a point that you could look at too. Antony's need to continue on and fight with Caesar is part of Antony's personality. Describe Antony. What's he like? How does he compare to the previous men? Compare and contrast Antony with Octavius Caesar. Again, choose one or two of these ideas and explore at length. You're not going to be able to fit all of this in a shorter paper. I'm quite fascinated, as you know, with the character of Enobarbus. Look at Enobarbus in this act, these scenes and lines. Why does he finally choose to leave Antony? And this is part of what makes Shakespeare, he's showing these ambiguous, what makes Shakespeare so amazing and wonderful and great. Like, we all understand why Enobarbus leaves Antony, right? Like, Antony's he's going down. But then also, Enobarbus feels this extreme guilt that he betrays Antony. Why does he feel this way? Look at the character of Enobarbus here, and also how the character of Enobarbus really shows what type of person Antony is, right? The fact that Enobarbus is so upset here at the end, right? Look at another thing you could look at. Look at tragedy and comedy in Antony and Cleopatra. This might be Shakespeare's only play where high tragedy and comedy just intermingle and overlap so much. I can't think off the top of I mean, there are moments of comedy, obviously, in Hamlet. They're very brief, and even Macbeth with that porter, the death knocking at the door. But it's interspersed throughout Antony and Cleopatra, and there are moments that I find highly comical and highly tragic. I think of the barge scene when they're all drinking on the boat. The barge, Act 2, Scene 7. There's also other scenes. Antony's drawn out death, and so what? Choose a few, look at those, and what effect did they have? And we're going to move into Titus now. Look at the character of Titus. Describe him. Marcus describes him at length. This is riffing off our first discussion board on Titus. Pick a moment, a few lines, and close read them. What jumps out to you about his language and speech? How do these moments fit into our themes of melancholy and revenge? Throughout the play, it seems like Titus, it's a contradiction, not a contradiction, but he's given his life to Rome. 24 of his 25 sons, and then during the play, I've given Rome and I have nothing in return. Right? Is his quest for revenge throughout justified? Why or why not? Look at the many moments. Look at what the trail of blood sets off, etc., etc. Look at the character of Aaron, which is, whereas Enobarbus is so fascinating to me in Antony and Cleopatra, Aaron is probably to me the most fascinating character of Titus. He's seen as this villain, duplicitous, horrible character who he has those speeches that are just, I wish I would have committed more crimes. But then upon seeing his new son, he is overwhelmed with compassion and caring. Right? Is he the only character in the play who truly feels, undeniable compassion and caring for his offspring, his child? Why or why not, right? I guess we could say Titus feels that way about Lavinia, but then he murders her at the end, right? So is Aaron the only character? Agree or disagree with me? Those are a few moments from Titus. You can also choose another moment seeing character from these plays and talk about them. Look at Cleopatra's attendants and servants, how she gets along with them is against, it's the Egyptian way of life, right? They're more playful, friendly than Roman, right? Look at the idea of play in Antony and Cleopatra. And that's one of the reasons I argue why Antony is so taken with Cleopatra. There's a playfulness about them. You can also zoom in on the extreme and abject violence in Titus Andronicus, specifically the horrific treatment throughout of Lavinia. What is the violence in the play attempting to illustrate? So those are some options for the final paper. If you want to write about something else, feel free. Email me and run it by me, though. These are just some ideas. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. We could talk over the video, or I can meet you in person. All right, everybody, that's the final paper.